We manage millions of dollars in ad spend every year for our clients on Meta. And here's the thing, 99% of it runs on manual bidding. Actually, 100% of it runs on manual bidding. We're talking bid caps, probably 90% of that 100% is on cost caps, and then target ROAS or minimum ROAS. Obviously, I'm a massive advocate for manual bidding because there's simply no better way to maximize both your volume and efficiency simultaneously. But I'll be honest with you, it's not always easy. There are real challenges that come with this approach. And so today I'm breaking down the 5 biggest challenges I face when we're running manual bids on Meta. And more importantly, I'll show you exactly how I handle each one. And we're covering what happens when campaigns break, how to align your optimization with actual outcomes, managing promotional periods, and why new creatives sometimes get almost zero spend, and then the structural challenge that determines whether manual bidding can even work in your account. So let's dive in. So challenge number 1, when actual performance doesn't match your target. So the number one challenge, and by this, I mean the far most common question I get is when your actual cost per acquisition actually doesn't line up with the target you've set. So let me give you a concrete example. You set a cost cap $100, but consistently your actual CPA comes in at $150. And this seems to defeat the entire purpose, right, of a cost control, right? So the whole promise of the bidding strategy is that Meta only spends when it believes it can hit your target. So what's going on here? So some important assumptions. I'm going to assume you've done the basics correctly. Your pixel is set up properly. You understand how to set targets relative to your unit economics. And then there's nothing fundamentally broken in your account setup. I'm also assuming that this isn't just a short-term blip during a promotional period. This is ongoing, it's persistent with campaigns that are more evergreen. So the solution, you need to adjust your target proportionally. And here's my straightforward answer to that. And I've used this successfully across multiple accounts. You adjust your cost cap relative to the consistent outcome you're actually getting. So you need to look at the ratio between your target and your actual results. So in our example, if you're getting a $150 CPA on a $100 cost cap, your actual performance is 1.5x or 1.5x higher than your target. So you need to simply set your cost cap at 2/3 of what you actually want. So if you want a $100 CPA, set your cost cap at 67. So important caveats. There's some important things to watch for. So first, you need to monitor this because Meta might actually eventually adjust and start delivering at your new target, which means you need to raise it back up. Second, and this is critical, don't make this adjustment based on small sample sizes. I think this is one of the biggest issues that I see with people that are running manual bids and the questions that I'm getting in the comments. I set up a cost control campaign and it's not spending anything and it's been 2 days. Or I'm getting such crazy high CPAs and it's been 5 days. So if you have 3 purchases at $150 CPA, that's not a broken system. That's just statistical noise. Even 50 purchases is still relatively small. So make sure you're seeing a persistent pattern over a meaningful sample size before making changes. You want to avoid making too many adjustments, which definitely contributes to the volatility. And you need to be careful not to assume that past performance is indicative of future outcomes. One of the biggest things that I see is people tend to chase immediate results, which ultimately negatively impacts the way that people adjust their cost controls. So for example, we miss on efficiency for a period and then lower the bid, then we miss on volume and open it back up. And that's this back and forth cycle. So you need to assess larger samples. Ultimately, it's a modeled bet that will get right over time. The only real reason to change the bid is if you're really wrong on the AOV, and ultimately too many adjustments leads to poor outcomes. We try to make one adjustment per campaign every 3 days max. Obviously, the longer the better to ensure we're not resetting campaigns into optimization constantly. So there's an additional strategy here, which is you choose your misdirection. So there's another layer to this decision. Ask yourself whether it's better for your business to miss high or miss low. Do you want to prioritize efficiency or volume? Businesses with high lifetime value might prefer to miss on the side of more volume, even if it costs a bit more upfront. If you need profitability, you obviously don't want to do that. So you probably want to err on the side of efficiency because your cash flow situation matters here too. So maybe instead of setting that $67 cost cap, you set it at 80 if you want more volume, or 50 if you need tighter efficiency, and then adjust based on your business needs. Challenge number 2, aligning optimization windows with expectations. So the core issue, this one is also about patience, but in a different way. So obviously, probably most of you advertisers are optimizing for 7-day click or 7-day click, 1-day view attribution windows, but I think here's what happens. You launch a campaign and then 3 days in, you look at performance and panic. This is exactly what I was just talking about. I wanted a $100 CPA, but I'm seeing 150. If that's happening, it's very possible that the only reason that's happening is that you just haven't waited the full 7 days yet, and that there are more purchasers that are going to come in the optimization window that you have set. So if you're optimizing for a 7-day click, Meta's algorithm is factoring in conversions that can happen up to 7 days after someone clicks on your ad. So that means that purchases are still coming in through that window. And so when you look at day 3, you're not seeing the complete picture. You're missing 4 more days of potential conversions that Meta is optimizing for and accounting for. And it gets even more complicated. Let's say you launch ads on Sunday and run through Saturday. That's 7 days. But your ads have actually been spending every single day. So by Saturday, you've got 7 days since the launch. But because Meta groups all purchases together in reporting, 6 of those 7 days of spend haven't completed their full attribution cycle yet. So you need to wait until every day of spend has reached its full 7-day window before you can actually judge performance. Now, if you're running 1-day click campaigns, you have a different version of this problem. Your results will actually come in faster, but remember, you're only capturing a small slice of the true value of your ads are generating. So your ads are actually producing conversions beyond day 1, but you're only optimizing for and reporting on day 1. So this means that you'll see more statistical noise because of the smaller sample size, and you need to understand that your ads are actually generating more value than what shows up in your metrics. So the bottom line here is simple. Match your expectations to your optimization window. So don't judge 7-day click campaigns on day 3. Don't compare 7-day click and 1-day click campaigns using the same standards. Obviously, they're measuring different things. And you need to be patient and let the attribution window complete before making decisions. Challenge number 3, the promotion period. So this is generally one of the hardest challenges within manual bids. The problem, when you run a sale or promotional event, the value of each click changes dramatically overnight. So Meta's bidding algorithm relies heavily on expected conversion rate. If you've been running at, say, 2% conversion rate for 30 days straight, Meta's locked that in and locked that expectation in. Then suddenly, Black Friday, and now you're converting at 4%, every click is worth twice as much. So on day 1 of your sale, maybe your cost controls won't actually recognize this immediately. So you'll likely see your campaigns performing much more efficient than usual. Maybe you're targeting 1-to-1 ROAS, but you're getting 1.5-to-1. That sounds great, except you're leaving volume on the table. You're actually underspending the opportunity because Meta hasn't updated its expected conversion rate yet. So by day 3 or 4, it usually catches up and starts scaling spend appropriately, but now you've already missed some of that early sale momentum. So the reverse side of this is potentially the bigger problem when your sale ends, and this is where you can actually burn a ton of money. So let's say you run a 20-day Black Friday sale. By day 3, Meta is fully adjusted to your sale conversion rates, so it's spending aggressively because clicks are valuable. Then the sale ends, and then suddenly clicks are worth much less. Meta doesn't know that immediately, so it keeps spending as if it's still getting sale level conversion rates. But this is where you can easily waste 10,000, 20,000 or more in just a couple of days, running at a 0.5 when you needed that 1-to-1. So for a long time, you can approach this adjusting your bids around these moments. I lower the bids at the start of the sale, force more spending, then I raise them dramatically after the sale ends. I'd essentially be putting my thumb on the scale. But I think a better approach is that what I do now is, especially for the post-sale period, is I manage these specific moments much more actively with budget caps, almost like a traditional auto bid approach. So usually with manual bids, you never want to hit the budget limit. Hitting your budget means there's either more volume or more efficiency available. But after a sale, I flip the strategy. So after a sale ends, you can leave the bids where they are, but dramatically drop the budgets based on what I know historically this account can spend. So if there's a client spending $50,000 a day during a holiday sale, I probably can predict accurately that they're going to go back down to $6,000 a day. So you can set daily budgets to reflect that expectation. That's where you can get kind of in the nuance of raising budgets and letting manual bids do their thing. So for the start of a sale, adjust the bid itself to tell Meta to spend more, but I'll set the budget to match the day 1 forecast for the sale. Don't just uncork a massive budget and hope for the best. You want to make sure that you're getting the outcome that you want. So usually get a daily spend forecast for important promotional moments, especially if you run the business through multiple sales cycles. So the key principle again here is to avoid catastrophic outcomes where you don't want to massively underspend and you don't want to massively overspend on the sale. So use historical data, create daily forecasts, and then aggressively look at your budgets within those guardrails. Challenge number 4, low spend on new creative. This is the thing that frustrates a lot of people. Honestly, it doesn't bother me. When you launch new creative with cost controls, a lot of it, and probably majority of it, won't spend much money ever. You'll launch an ad and it spends $5, $3, $10, maybe even $100. And you're sitting there thinking, well, how does Meta actually know this won't work with such little spend? I would say, and I have other episodes on this, but one of the greatest features of manual bids is that Meta is doing this proactively and suppressing ad spend that is very unlikely to produce your desired outcome. If you think about how much money gets completely wasted in ad accounts every month on creative testing, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars are completely lit on fire for people forcing spend on creative that isn't working. And it's literally sunk cost fallacy. I've invested in this creative, so I will force spend behind it because I believe in this creative. But manual bids actually and cost controls gives you a tool that prevents most of that waste. So again, the beauty of the tool is that it frees you from creative analysis and creative paralysis with much less risk. So you can test more variations, more concepts, more hooks because the distribution cost is so much lower. And ultimately, this is feedback to you. So if something isn't resonating, Meta is not going to spend on it. And you're not hemorrhaging budget on creative that doesn't work. So now, what we do at Kinship is we can test new creative by raising the bid at a higher elevated cost control compared to the rest of the ad account for up to 7 days. And if it still does not spend, basically we will say, you're welcome for not burning your money. We raise the cost control relative to the rest of the ad account because previous ad creatives already have pre-existing social content, social proof, comments, etc. There's data behind it. So we offset that favoritism with an elevated cost control, 10 to 15 to 20% higher than the rest of the ad account. It's a way to give it a fair shot. And if it still doesn't spend, your creative, at that point is not good enough to get spend at your target. So point blank, the algorithm is better at predicting future performance than my brain, your brain, both of us together. And I don't want to waste money on creative that's not going to perform. It's the same as any other cost center in your business. If an employee is not performing, if a software is not performing and delivering the value, then obviously you cut it. And so the same with creative. You need to ask yourself, why was I excited about this creative, but it didn't resonate with customers? Because that's what low spend really means. People aren't engaging with your ad. Even though you're not getting tons of data, you're still getting feedback. If an ad is spending $3 to $5 and Meta keeps suppressing it, that's telling you something important. So use it as a moment to examine what you got wrong. Is it the hook? Is it the video? Take that feedback, learn from it, apply it to your next batch of creative. And ultimately, we leave every ad on because sometimes something can come back from the dead, even though it's rare, but you leave it on. You don't have to turn it off. Challenge number 5, learning phase management and conversion volume requirements. So this 5th challenge is one that separates amateur manual bidding or cost control operators from more professionals, I would say. It's also the one that I see destroy accounts more than almost anything else. And here's what I'm talking about. Learning phase management and conversion volume requirements. So structurally, it's not tactical like others. This determines whether manual bidding can even work in your account at all. So the fundamental constraint is that Meta needs approximately 50 conversions per week at the ad set level for your campaigns to properly optimize and exit the learning phase. That obviously is just how the algorithm works, but here's where it gets brutal. Most account structures using manual bids simply cannot generate that volume. Your budget, your CPA target, your desired campaign structure ultimately are not coexisting. So ultimately, what you need is a formula where your cost cap times 7, the number of ad sets equals your minimum daily budget. So let's say you're targeting a $50 cost cap and you're running 5 ad sets. You need a minimum of $1,785 per day just to properly optimize. So if you're running below that budget, you face an impossible choice. Either reduce your ad sets and limit your testing capability, or accept that you'll be stuck in learning phase forever. So essentially, this is fundamentally different from your 4 challenges that we just covered because it isn't about necessarily performance, matching your target. That's more of a measurement issue. This isn't about attribution timing. That's a patient issue. This isn't about seasonal or promotional moments, and it's not about individual creative performance. This is about whether your entire campaign structure can generate enough signal for Meta to optimize at all. So if you get this wrong, essentially nothing else matters because your campaigns will never stabilize enough to even address the other challenges. And what makes this even harder is that any campaign adjustment that exceeds 15% is ultimately also going to reset you into learning phase. Budget increase by 20%, back to learning. Add 3 new ads when you have 5 running, back to learning. So change your cost cap by more than 15%, back to learning. Again, this creates total paralysis where you're afraid to make optimizations because you fear losing all your progress. This creates people to ultimately, freeze, stop making changes, I would say a lot of traditional media buying advice makes this problem worse. The classic playbook is to, run testing campaigns with new creative and then move winners to scaling campaigns. Ultimately, I've talked about this at length. Every time you're going to move creative between campaigns, you're resetting learning phase. You're literally pulling the rug out from under your best performing ads. And I just think ultimately that you're constantly resetting optimization within this method. So the solution in all of this is campaign consolidation. Fewer ad sets, more creative per ad set if you can. And I know this goes against every instinct you have about testing and control, but one of the things that this allows us to have more segmented structure is you have a new campaign. You only have a campaign for per SKU, per offer, which allows much more consolidated approaches and then more ad sets within that particular SKU when you have new creative. I have other videos about this that I can link in the comments if you guys ask, or you could go to my channel to actually see that. So that's where I would say I completely eliminated, I've talked at length about this, is eliminating tested campaigns. You want to maximize all of the ads per ad set, launch as much creative diversity within that ad set per that campaign that's relevant to that offer or SKU, and you surrender more granular control. You're not isolating every variable. You're not testing, a bunch of different audiences for every concept, not having strict budgets, but my campaigns stay out of learning phase. They optimize properly. They actually work the way that I want the cost controls to work and how they're supposed to work. So specific rules. First, have the minimum number of campaigns and maximize the ad sets. Use the formula, and then make sure that I'm spending at least 30% of the total budget on campaigns. And if I can't hit that threshold, I consolidate further because not every SKU deserves advertising. And then when you're making adjustments, try to stay under that 15% threshold. Increasing budget by 15% or lowering budget by 15% or increasing cost control by 10 to 15% or lowering it, etc. And then ultimately, I want to limit changes to maybe one or max twice per week and let things stabilize, especially within a 7-day click window. So there's some nuance here. Like you might be thinking, if I consolidate my campaigns, how do I test creative? And the answer is within a consolidated structure, it might not necessarily be more ad sets, but more ads per ad set. So 50 ads per ad set is the max. So I want to maximize that ad set before adding a new ad set. But there's also some nuance where if I already have 2 ad sets, one's in optimization, one's in learning, I'm going to add new creative to the learning before I add new creative to the ad sets that is within optimization. This gives you testing capability while also maximizing conversion volume. Bottom line is learning phase management and conversion volume requirements is a structural foundation thing that determines whether your manual bidding can actually work. So you definitely want to solve for that. Your campaigns will never stabilize enough to properly address when they break attribution timing, promotional moments, creative testing. That's one of the foundational things. So you got to get it right. Consolidation, Meta's really pushing this. This is definitely the way of the future. And if you can do that, manual bids are very powerful. So to recap, 5 hardest things about running cost controls. Number 1, when actual performance doesn't match your target, adjust your cost cap proportionally based on the consistent outcome that you're actually getting. So if you're getting that 1.5x your target, set your cost cap at 2/3 of what you want. Number 2, be patient and align with your expectations of your optimization window. If you're on 7-day click, wait the full 7 days before judging performance. Number 3, promotional moments. Use budget more actively as a governor. Number 4, accept low spend on new creative as a feature, not a bug. Trust that Meta is saving you from wasting money and use the feedback to improve your creative, improve your offer, etc. And then number 5, solve the learning phase challenge through campaign consolidation. And those are the challenges that trip people up the most. But again, once you understand how to handle them, manual bids become incredibly powerful. So again, if you found this helpful, make sure to subscribe. I create tons of content around all these things, and you can find me at Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. Follow me there. If you have questions or want to share your experience on cost controls, drop a comment below, and I read and respond to all of them. And like I say every time, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.